She left me because I was too ordinary. Now she's begging for forgiveness while I'm signing a $50 million deal. I am a man of 33. 4 years ago, my wife looked me in the eyes and told me she couldn't stay married to a man this ordinary. Today I'm sitting in a glass boardroom about to sign a $50 million deal, and my phone won't stop buzzing with messages from that same woman, begging me to meet her one last time. To understand how I got here, you have to understand who I used to be. Back then, I was the definition of average on paper. I worked as a mid-level project manager in a logistics company. I made decent money, nothing crazy. I drove a small used car that still smelled like the previous owner's cologne. I lived in a modest apartment that I tried to make nice on a budget. I packed my lunch. I compared electricity prices. I thought being responsible was a personality. My wife's name is Elise. We met when we were 24, at a friend's game night. She was loud, confident, always the center of attention. She had big plans, big words, big opinions about wasting your potential. I was quieter, more careful. Somehow, she said that made her feel safe. She told me she had never met a man who kept his word the way I did. She came from a family where money appeared and disappeared without logic. Her dad chased big opportunities that never worked. Her mom changed jobs every year. Elise told me she wanted the opposite. She said she wanted stability, someone solid, someone who could be the anchor while she chased her dreams. It sounded romantic. I built my whole life around that sentence without realizing it. We got married at 27. It was small, simple, nothing luxury. I still remember her crying during her vows, saying she would choose me in every version of her life. At the time I believed every word. I worked harder. I took on extra responsibilities. I started saving more because we talked about buying a house, having kids, doing things the right way. Things were good at first. I would come home tired but satisfied. She would talk about her ideas, her projects, her future. I encouraged everything. I proofread her CV. I helped her prep for interviews. When she got a job in a big marketing firm, we celebrated with cheap champagne on the couch. She said it was just the beginning. I agreed. The first cracks were small. Little comments she made about my clothes, my car, my job. Jokes about me being the spreadsheet guy, the safe option, the dependable, boring one. I laughed them off. I told myself every couple has jokes like that. Then her new world started to grow. After-work drinks. Weekend networking events. Trips for strategy workshops. She came home later and later. When I asked how it went, she would talk about the energy, the ambition, the people who think big. She compared it to our quiet apartment, our routine dinners, our Saturday grocery runs. Sometimes she would say it directly. She would say things like, "You don't ever want more?" I would answer that I did, but I thought we were building more brick by brick. I believed in patience. She believed in leaps. We argued sometimes, but it stayed under control. I thought that meant we were fine. I didn't realize she had already started rewriting our story in her head. Everything changed the night she came back from her company's annual retreat. It was at some resort I couldn't afford on my salary alone. She left on Friday excited and came back Sunday night different. I don't have a better word. Just different. She walked in with a new suitcase, new clothes, new tone. She hugged me like you hug a relative at a funeral. I asked how it went. She said it was life-changing. She mentioned rooftop bars, talks about personal branding, people who knew where they were going. She kept saying those phrases like they were passwords to a new world. Then she said something that stuck. She said, "Being there made me realize how small my life actually is." I asked what she meant. She gestured around the living room. The TV with a tiny scratch on the side. The second-hand sofa. The table we bought on discount. She listed them without saying their names, like she was listing symptoms of a disease. I told her there was nothing wrong with starting small. She said she knew, but she sounded like she didn't believe it anymore. Within weeks, the comments got sharper. She told me I lacked ambition. She said my job was a dead end. She said she couldn't picture growing old, stuck, in our neighborhood. Every fear she had suddenly became my fault. Still, I did what I always did, I tried to fix things quietly. I started taking online business courses at night. I read about startups, finance, sales. I didn't tell her at first because I wanted to surprise her once I had something real. In my company, I had a front-row view of a huge problem. Mid-sized businesses were losing money because their supply chains were stuck in old software, emails, and spreadsheets. I handled the mess every day. I saw the same patterns: late shipments, wrong stock levels, angry clients, managers pretending they had control when they didn't. The idea hit me slowly. What if there was a simple platform that pulled all this chaos into one clear dashboard, made for people like me who weren't tech geniuses? I didn't want to build something glamorous. I wanted to build something useful. I started sketching things on paper at night. Elise would walk past and roll her eyes. She said she couldn't believe I was still doing nerd stuff after work. She said if I wanted more, I should aim higher and stop thinking so small. She thought my idea was small because it wasn't shiny. It was a tool, not a lifestyle brand. But I knew the pain I was trying to solve. I lived it every day. I found a freelance developer online and paid him with my savings to build a basic version. Nothing fancy, just something that could pull data from spreadsheets and emails into one view. I tested it with a friend who ran a small warehouse. Within 2 weeks, he told me errors had dropped. Within a month, he said he wanted to pay for it if I could keep improving it. When I told Elise, I expected at least a small spark of pride. Instead, she laughed. She said, "So you're making another boring dashboard? That's your big dream?" I said it wasn't about the look, it was about the result. She rolled her eyes and said businessmen she met talked about changing the world, not about spreadsheets. Her words hurt, but my friend's results spoke louder. I got 2 more small clients through him. I kept my day job and worked nights and weekends on the product. I was exhausted but more alive than I had felt in years. At the same time, Elisa's world drifted further from mine. She started posting photos with people I had never met. Cocktails on rooftops. Panels. Stylish offices. Captions about chasing the extraordinary. I noticed she stopped tagging me. At home, the gap was obvious. She complained that I was always working. She said I had no balance, that I cared more about my laptop than about her. I told her I was doing this for us, so we could have more options. She said she didn't ask for this. One night, after a long fight about me missing a dinner with her colleagues, she said something that cut deeper than anything before. She said, "You are never going to be more than what you are now. You're a nice guy with a boring little idea and a comfortable life. That's it." I stayed quiet because if I had spoken, I would have said something I couldn't take back. The real breaking point came a few months later, on a Tuesday. I remember the day because nothing special was supposed to happen. I came home from work to find her sitting at the table, a packed suitcase next to her. She didn't look angry. She looked decided. She told me she was leaving. Not for a week. Not for a break. She said she wanted a divorce. My first reaction was confusion. I asked if something had happened. She said nothing specific had happened. She just woke up and realized she couldn't keep living a life that felt this ordinary. Those were her exact words. She said she was tired of our small apartment, tired of my safe job, tired of hearing about warehouses and dashboards and clients who paid late. She said she didn't want to spend her 30s with a man who thought making life slightly more efficient for small businesses was some kind of big dream. I asked her if there was someone else. She paused for a fraction of a second too long and then said no. She said it wasn't about another man, it was about her needing to find herself. Then she told me she had already signed a lease on a new place with a roommate she met at work. She had already told her parents. She had already spoken to a lawyer to understand the separation process. I realized I was the last one to know my marriage had ended. She slid a document across the table with some basic separation terms she wanted. She said she didn't want to fight about money because there wasn't much anyway. She said she would leave me the apartment because she was not attached to this place. That line cut especially deep. I had chosen this apartment because she had said, years earlier, that it felt cozy and full of potential. Now it was just a symbol of everything she wanted to escape. I asked her one last time if she was sure. I told her I was willing to go to counseling. I told her I was willing to slow down my project if it meant we could reconnect. She shook her head. She said, "You don't get it. I don't want to fix this. I want a different life." There's a specific type of pain when someone doesn't just fall out of love with you, but decides you're too small for the future they imagine. It's not just heartbreak. It's humiliation. She left that night. She didn't slam the door. She closed it carefully behind her like she was leaving a hotel room she would never book again. The weeks after were a blur of paperwork, cold dinners, and silent evenings. People asked questions. Her parents called me and said they were sorry it didn't work out. Some friends took her side, saying she was brave for admitting she wanted more. Others stayed neutral. A few told me I would find someone better, the usual lines people use when they don't know what to say. I kept working. At first it was just to keep my mind busy. Then something shifted. The thing she mocked became the thing that kept me upright. My little startup, which had barely been more than a side project, was starting to get traction. My friend's warehouse recommended me to a supplier. That supplier recommended me to another. I fixed bugs during my lunch breaks. I answered client calls in stairwells. I slept badly but kept moving. 6 months after she left, I had 10 paying clients. My product was still basic, but it worked. It saved people time and money. I went to my manager and told him I wanted to quit to focus on it fully. He looked at me like I was crazy. He reminded me that my marriage had just ended and suggested I shouldn't make big decisions. I heard his concern, but I had already lived the safe life. It hadn't saved my marriage. It hadn't protected me from being labeled ordinary. I quit. I used the money from my small savings and what I didn't have to give away in the divorce to stretch things for a year. I moved to a cheaper apartment, sold my car, cut every non-essential cost. Some people called it a crisis. For the first time, it felt like I was actually taking a risk for something that wasn't just someone else's dream. The first year almost broke me. I lost 2 clients because of early bugs. I had days where nothing worked, where I stared at my code partner's messages and wanted to delete the whole thing. I had moments where Elisa's voice played in my head, calling me boring and small, and I wondered if she had been right. Then, one day, I got an email from the operations director of a regional chain of stores. He had heard about my product from 2 different people. He wanted a demo. Their supply chain was a mess. If I could solve even part of it, he said, they might sign a real contract. I prepared like my life depended on it, because it did. The demo was at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. I wore my best shirt, which still wasn't anything special. I showed them what my system could do. I didn't use big words. I showed them clear numbers, reduced errors, faster deliveries, real money saved. They decided in 2 weeks. I didn't sleep much during that time. When the email finally came, it was short. They wanted to go ahead with a 1-year contract with an option to expand if results were good. The amount, for me at that point, was huge. It wouldn't make me rich, but it would keep the business alive. I sat alone at my desk and cried. Not because of Elise. Not even because of the money. Because for the first time, something I had built that everyone had called small was proving itself in a way no opinion could erase. From there, growth was slow but steady. I hired my first full-time developer. Then a support person. Then a sales rep. We upgraded the product, made it cleaner, faster, more user-friendly. I reinvested almost everything. No luxury. No big car. Just progress. Meanwhile, little pieces of Elisa's life drifted into my orbit through mutual friends and social media. I learned, months after the divorce, that there had been another man after all. A senior guy at her company. He had taken her on trips I could never afford, posted photos with her in nicer places than I could pronounce. People said they were perfect together because they both wanted the big life. They lasted a year. Then he left her for someone else. Newer. Younger. More impressive. I heard she had taken it badly. I didn't feel satisfaction. Just a cold, distant confirmation. The problem was never really me being too ordinary. The problem was her never being able to sit still with anything real. By the time I turned 32, my boring product had contracts with several regional companies and one national distributor. We weren't a giant, but we were visible. That's when the bigger players started circling. We got emails from bigger funds, from firms that said they specialized in scaling B2B solutions. Most of them were talk. Some were serious. One of them, a mid-sized private equity firm with a strong track record, asked for detailed numbers. We sent them everything. They liked what they saw. They made an offer. They wanted to buy a majority stake in my company, keep me as CEO, inject capital, and push us into international markets. The total value of the deal would be just over $50 million. My share, after paying early partners and employees, would still be more money than I had ever imagined touching in my entire life. The first person I thought about was not Elise. It was the guy I used to be at my old job, eating a sad sandwich, being called reliable and solid, and wondering if that was all there was. I wanted to go back in time and tell him to hold on. We didn't sign right away. There were months of meetings, negotiations, due diligence. Lawyers. Spreadsheets. Long days. I stayed cautious. I didn't want to lose control completely. I fought for my team. I fought for key decisions. But the numbers were real. The opportunity was real. The date for the final signing meeting was set for a Friday morning. They booked a conference room on the top floor of a fancy building downtown. I bought a new suit for the first time in my life. Not because I needed to impress them, but because I wanted to mark the moment for myself. The night before that meeting, as I was double-checking documents at my kitchen table, my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. It was a long text, starting with my name like a speech. At the end of the message, there was a simple signature, Elise. Her first sentence hit hard, "I heard about your company." She said she didn't know if I would ever read her message, but she had to try. She mentioned the article that had just come out about my startup in a local business site. The one that called my product the quiet backbone behind a new wave of efficiency. The one with my photo on it. She wrote that she had read it 3 times. She said she couldn't believe this was me, the same man she had once called too ordinary. She said she had been wrong. Her message went on and on. She talked about how she had been confused and scared of a small life. She said she had chased excitement and ended up with nothing stable. She said she hadn't realized what she had until she left. She wrote that she missed my steadiness, my calm, my boring routines. She said she now understood that ordinary had been her word for safe, and that she had thrown away the only safe place she'd ever had. Then she wrote the sentence that made my chest tighten, not because I wanted her, but because of the sheer nerve. She wrote, "I would do anything for a chance to talk. Even just once, please." I didn't reply that night. I put my phone face down and went back to the documents. I didn't want my mind clouded before the meeting. But I couldn't completely ignore the old version of me that still wanted to hear her apologize in person. The next morning, I woke up early. I checked my phone. More messages. Missed calls from the same number. No voicemail. Just persistence. I dressed slowly. Shirt, tie, new suit. In the mirror, I didn't see a different man. I saw the same one, just with sharper lines under his eyes. The difference wasn't the clothes, it was the fact that I finally believed my own value even if nobody else did. On the way to the meeting, I decided something. I would answer her. Not for her. For me. I needed to hear my own voice say the things I had never been able to say during the divorce, when I was still weak and confused. I wrote a short message, I have a meeting this morning. After that I'll have 10 minutes. 3 p.m. the cafe near the old apartment. If you're there, I'll listen. That's all. She replied in less than a minute. Long string of thank yous and relief. I put my phone away. The boardroom was like something out of a movie. Long table, city view, water bottles lined up like soldiers, legal folders stacked neatly. The partners from the firm were already there with their team. My lawyer sat next to me. My co-founder across from me looked more nervous than I felt. We went through the main points again. Percentages. Vesting. Board seats. Then came the actual signing. They pushed the documents toward me with nice pens. I held the pen for a second, thought about the night Elise called my dream small, and then I signed. $50 million. On paper it's just numbers. In my chest, it was every late night, every doubt, every humiliating comment, every moment I almost quit. People shook hands. Someone took a photo. One of the partners put a hand on my shoulder and said they were excited to build something big with me. I smiled and thanked him. During a short break, I checked my phone. Elise had sent another message saying she would be at the cafe early. I could have ignored her. Blocked the number. Gone out to celebrate with my team. Part of me wanted that. But another part of me needed to close that chapter with my eyes open. At 2:55 p.m., I walked into the little cafe near our old apartment. The same place where we used to argue about money and laugh about nothing. She was already there, at a corner table. She looked older. Not in a bad way, just more tired. The gloss from those old rooftop photos was gone. She was dressed nicely, but not like she was going to impress a room anymore. When she saw me, she stood up, then sat back down like she wasn't sure what to do with her hands. I sat. Between us on the table were 2 menus and a silence that was heavier than anything I had felt in that boardroom. She started talking fast. She said I looked good. She asked how I was. She complimented my suit. She tried small talk like we were old friends. I let her talk for a minute, then I stopped her. I told her I only had 10 minutes and that she should say what she came to say. Her eyes filled with tears almost instantly. She said she was sorry. Not a casual sorry, but a full one. She listed specific things, calling me boring, saying my dream was small, leaving without trying, choosing excitement over loyalty. She said she had been selfish, arrogant, blind. She talked about her life since. The relationship with the senior colleague that had seemed glamorous and ended ugly. The 2 other failed relationships after. The job she lost because the company downsized and kept people with more measurable results. The smaller apartment. The nights alone. She said she had started seeing my name in articles, hearing my company mentioned in conversations. She said every time it happened, it felt like a punch. Not because I was successful, but because I had become the kind of man she never believed I could be without her. Then she said the part she really came for. She said she wanted a second chance. She said she had grown up, that she now understood the value of stability, loyalty, character. She said she regretted leaving me more than anything she had ever done. She said she thought about the life we could have had if she had stayed and believed in me. She said all the things people always imagine their ex will say one day when they finally realize. I listened. I watched her face. I remembered nights sitting alone at that same table after she left, wondering what was wrong with me. When she finished, she said she knew I had probably moved on, but she had to at least try. She said she was willing to start slowly, to earn my trust again, to prove she wasn't the same person. There was a time when hearing those words would have broken me. A part of me, the younger part, still wanted to rewind, to fix everything, to believe in a world where hard lessons didn't leave scars. But the man sitting in that cafe wasn't the same one she had left. I told her the truth. Calmly. I told her she hadn't left because I was ordinary. She had left because she thought she could do better and didn't respect what I was building. I told her calling me boring had been less about me and more about her fear of sitting with herself. I told her that my company, the big deal, the articles, all of it, had grown out of the same man she had walked away from. Not a different one. The same one. The difference was that now other people finally saw my value too. She cried. She said she knew. Then I told her the part that hurt her the most. I said I forgave her, but I didn't want her back. She looked like I had slapped her. She asked if there was someone else. I said no. She asked if I was sure we couldn't try, at least talk more. She said we had history, that we knew each other deeply. I told her that the version of me who loved her existed in a life she burned. I told her I could respect her as a person, wish her well, coexist in the same city, but I couldn't trust her with my future. Not after she had used my lowest point as proof that she was right about me. She said she had changed. I said maybe she had, but I had as well. My standards had changed. My view of myself had changed. I told her that getting her back could no longer be the measure of my worth. She put her face in her hands and sobbed quietly. People around us pretended not to listen. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel revenge. I felt sad for both of us. For the younger versions who had believed that love alone would be enough when values didn't match. When she calmed down, I told her one last thing. I said I hoped she would build a life where she didn't need someone else's success to feel complete. I said I hoped she would find peace with the choices she made instead of chasing old doors she had slammed herself. We stood up. She asked if she could hug me. I hesitated, then agreed. It was a short hug, full of memories and empty of future. As I walked out of the cafe, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my lawyer confirming that the final wire transfer for the deal would go through by the end of the day. I looked at the screen, then at the street, then at the cafe behind me. For a second, the contrast was so sharp it felt unreal. Inside, the woman who once left because my life was too small was crying at a table we used to share. Outside, I was stepping into a life I had built from the ground she had walked away from. In the weeks that followed, her messages continued for a while. Short ones. I'm thinking of you. I'm happy for your success. I miss talking to you. I replied politely a few times, then less and less. Eventually, the messages stopped. We faded back into what we are now, two people with a shared past and separate futures. My life is not perfect. Money doesn't erase everything. I still have bad days. I still question myself. I still wake up sometimes with the old fear of being not enough stuck in my throat. But now, I have proof right in front of me that my value was never something someone else was supposed to give me. People love to say success is the best revenge. I don't see it that way. Revenge would mean my whole path was about proving her wrong. It wasn't. There were nights when the only thing that kept me going was a client's email, or my team's trust, or my own stubborn refusal to quit. Her voice was part of the story, but it wasn't the main one. If there's anything I took from all of this, it's this: you cannot build your self-worth on someone who can walk away when you are still in process. The people who deserve to stand next to you when you sign big deals are the ones who sat next to you when your bank account was almost empty and your idea was just notes on a sheet of paper. She left me because I was too ordinary, in a world where she only saw value in shiny, loud things. In the end, the thing she called ordinary turned into a company worth tens of millions, a team of people whose salaries feed their families, a product that actually makes customers' lives easier. And me? I still pack my own lunch most days. I still compare prices. I still like quiet evenings more than rooftop bars. I still think stability is not a weakness. The difference is simple: I no longer apologize for it. So yes, she's begging for forgiveness while I'm signing a $50 million deal. I gave her the only forgiveness I could. I let go of the version of myself who believed her. I didn't give her the second chance she wanted. I gave it to myself.
Follow me for more stories.